Okay, hello fourth year students. Today we are going to talk about the minor types of sentences in English. You remember throughout all the whole chapter, which is chapter 7, we were talking about the major types of sentences in English, and we said that they are four: the statements, the questions, the commands or imperative sentences, and the exclamations. And we have explained the types and structures of each one of these major kinds of sentences in English. So there are what is called minor types of sentences in English, which are mainly used in the spoken language. What are these minor types and what is the structure of each of these types? We are going to see them or be introduced to them in the following video. So there are, in fact, four minor types of sentences in English, and we are going to start with the first type, which is the formulae. So the first type is called the formulae. What is a formulae? A formulae is a sentence, okay, that although it may have the appearance of belonging to one of the major classes, but in fact it does not enter into all the relationships. It cannot be subjected to all the types of transformations that this major class that it belongs to can be subjected to. Okay, for example, if we take for example the greeting formula that is appropriate for or suitable or is said usually in the first meeting, which is how do you do. When you are introduced for the first time to a new person, usually you greet each other by saying how do you do. If we examine the structure of the sentence, you are going to tell me that it is a WH question. Okay, but if we try to make all the transformations that the normal WH questions may be subjected to, okay, we can see that this question, how do you do, cannot be subjected to all of them. Okay, for example, the normal WH question can be changed into or from a direct speech into a reported speech. Okay, for example, if I ask someone, where do you live? This is a direct speech. If I want to change it into a reported speech, I will say, for example, the teacher asked the student where he lived. Okay, so the teacher asked the student where he lived. This is a reported speech or the indirect form of the direct question, which is where do you live? Let us see now. Can we apply this to this question, how do you do? Can we change it from a direct speech into a reported or indirect speech? They said here, such a question cannot be changed into a reported speech. So we cannot say they asked him how he did. Okay, this is one. Second, usually when I try to answer a WH question, as we have learned before, that we have to answer to it in a complete sentence. From where I'm going to get the elements of this complete sentence, I'm going to take the elements of my answer from the question itself. So if we use the same example, where do you live? I will try to answer this question by saying I live in Basra. So you see, I have taken what the subject I from the subject of the question, which is you, has been changed into the answer into I. Then the main verb live Again, it is also found in the what? In the WH question. Then I provide my speaker with what? With the new information he wants to know about me in Basel. Let us now try to answer this question. How do you do? So, can we say I did very well? No. Usually, such a question, how do you do, is answered in spoken language by saying good, or I'm good, I am good, or I am fine, or only fine. Okay? So you see, not all the elements that we use in the answer of this question, how do you do, are actually taken from the question itself. So here, what do we call such a question? We call it a formula. Again, what do we mean by a formula? A formula is a sentence, okay, that in appearance, you see, only in appearance, it may look that it belongs to one of the major classes that we have studied. It can be a statement in appearance only, okay, or a question, a command, or an exclamation. But in fact, we cannot do all the transformational process to this sentence, okay, that we can do, or we can do what to the original or to the major class that it belongs to in what? Only in appearance. The second minor types of sentences in English is called the irregular sentences. So what do we mean by irregular sentences? Again, we are going to have sentences that belong to one of the major classes that we have studied. It can be a statement, a question, a command, or an exclamatory sentence, but in fact, it is going to lack some important elements in their structure. For example, some of the questions, especially the WH questions that we use mainly in spoken language, they may have the appearance, or they can belong to WH questions, but in fact they are not going to be or to have the complete structure of the correct WH question. For example, we say, why get upset? Why not enjoy yourself? How about moving to New York? What about Anne? You see, these questions, you are going to tell me that they are WH questions because they start with WH words. Okay, but do they have the correct structure or the complete structure of a WH question? If you examine these questions, you are going to see that they are missing or lacking some important elements that should be available in the correct or complete WH question, like the auxiliary and the subject. Okay, so in this case, in spite of that, in spite of lacking important elements in their structure, but they are what? They are comprehensible. They can be understood by the listeners, and they are going to answer them. Why? Because here they are going to depend on the context of situation, on the conversation, on what and on why these questions are asked, and they can answer them. Do we have examples about the irregular sentences? Yes, there are. For example, there are verbless imperatives. If you remember, we said that the imperatives should be what? Or commands. The major type of the commands, they are what? Starting with verbs, with no subject, with no overt subject. But if you examine the structure of the following commands, you are going to start, they are not starting with what? With a verb. They are starting with a preposition instead. For example, down with him, off with the lid. Okay, off with the lid means to say the secret. It is an idiomatic command which means say the secret. So you see, these are commands, okay? But they are not similar to the commands, the original commands that we have studied in structure. Why? Because they are not starting with verbs, they are starting with prepositions. Also, there are some archaic, old expressions in language, like long live the queen, bless you, God save the queen, may all your dreams come true. So these are statements that express wishes. We know that usual statements, they start with what? With subjects followed by what? Verbs. But here, as you see, they are not having the complete or the correct structure of statements. Long live the queen. Long, it starts with what? With the adverb. Bless you, with a verb. God save the queen. Okay, there's no concord between the subject and the verb. The verb here is used in its subjunctive form. It's a base form. Okay? May all your dreams come true. This sentence, statement starts with the modal auxiliary may, okay, which is different from the modal auxiliary that we have studied before in meaning. Uh, it is not used. Usually, we say that the modal auxiliary may can be used only at the beginning of questions, yes, no questions. But here, this is not a question, this is a statement. How can we use the modal auxiliary may in a normal statement at the beginning? So you see, these are what? Statements, but they do not follow, or they do not have the correct structure of statements, yet they are acceptable in language and they can be understood by the speakers of the language. Okay? Another example of irregular sentences are the exclamatory sentences, like, if only I'd listened to my parents. To think I was once a millionaire. Oh, for a drink. Oh, to be free. You and your statistics. Now for some fun. These are exclamatory sentences, yet they do not have the correct structure of the exclamatory sentences that we have studied. If you remember, we said that exclamatory sentences, usually, if we will want to make a sentence, usually we start them with what? With one of the two, or one of these two WH words, either how or what, followed by another element. To make what? To make the X element. If you examine the structure of these exclamatory sentences, you are finding that they do not start with how or what. They do not start with an X element, yet they are acceptable in spoken language as being what? Exclamatory sentences. So again, what do we mean by irregular sentences? Irregular sentences that we say that they are sentences that belong to one of the major classes of sentences in English, yet they do not have the same structure, okay, or the complete structure of the sentences in these major classes. Number 3, or the third type of the minor sentences in English, is called the aphoristic sentence. The aphoristic sentence is a sentence whose structure is unique, okay, and it is mainly found in proverbs. So, what is this unique structure that we can find in the aphoristic sentence? The aphoristic sentence, in fact, it is a sentence that consists of two equivalent parts. Two equivalent parts, two similar parts in structure. They are similar in what? In structure. For example, the more, the merrier. It is a proverb in English. If you examine the structure of this proverb, you are going to see that this proverb consists of two parts separated by a comma. What is the structure of each part? The first part consists of the more, the, plus a comparative form more. The second part also consists of what? The article or determiner the, plus what? The comparative form merrier. So there is what? A missing form in both, a missing element in both of them, which is what? The verb. And we can understand that such a proverb means that the more there are of us, the merrier we are, the happier we are. Another example, least said soonest mended. Again, a proverb of two similar or equivalent parts. The first part consists of least, the superlative form, plus a verb in the passive said. And the second part, also soonest mended, consists of the superlative form soonest plus what? A passive verb mended. Again, no auxiliary verb. We have a main verb in the passive, and we know that the verb in the passive needs to be preceded by an auxiliary, but here we do not have an auxiliary. Okay, in both parts, not in one part only, in both of these parts, we do not find what? The auxiliary verb. And we can paraphrase such a verb by saying that, a proverb, sorry, by saying that the least that is said, the soonest to be mended. Handsome is as handsome does. Again, we have two parts, handsome is and handsome does, connected by the conjunction as. Okay, both of these parts consist of what? Handsome, okay, an adjective that is used to be what? To be a subject, followed by a verb. In the first form we have, in the first part we have the verb is, in the second part we have the verb does. Easy come, easy go. Again, a proverb of two parts, and these two parts, both of them, they start with what? With easy, the adjective easy that is used here as a what? As a subject, followed by a verb in both parts. So what do we call such a structure? We call it an aphoristic sentence or aphoristic structure that is mainly found in proverbs, and such a structure is going to make the sentence having two equivalent or similar parts in what? In structure. The last minor type of sentences in English is the block language. The block language, in fact, is going to be more important than the three previous ones, because here we are not going to see it only in spoken language. It can be used also in formal situations. Okay, what is the different? What is unique about the block language, or what is the structure that we can say that it is special in the block language? The block language, in fact, is a language that is structured in terms of single words and phrases. Okay, so the block language is going to be structured in forms or in the form of single individual words and phrases, not sentences, rather than in terms of more highly organized units of the clause. So we are not going to see that the block language is going to be in form of sentences. No, in parts of these sentences, yet it is going to be understood and comprehensible, and you are going to see that it is used in formal situations, not in informal or spoken language. So language so used in this case is going to be called block language. It appears in such functions as labels, titles, headings, notices, and advertisements. Simple block language messages most often consist of a noun or noun phrase or nominal clause in isolation. Okay, so the major element that we are going to see or to find in the block language is what? The noun, whether it is a simple noun or a noun phrase or a nominal clause. No verb is needed. In most of the cases, we are not going to need what? A verb. Maybe we are going to use other elements, an adjective, an adverb, okay, with the noun, but mostly, okay, we do not need what? The verb. The verb can be understood from what? From the context, because all else necessary to the understanding of the message is furnished by context. Okay, so how can we understand it if we do not have a verb? okay? Or only we are going to have something written only with nouns. Here, the context will help us in understanding what is the message that this block language wants to tell us. For example, for example, usually on labels, okay, on buildings, in the door or doors of buildings, we can find that it is there's something written. This is this entrance or exit. You see, entrance and exit, they are what only, they are what in parts of a speech, they are nouns. Okay, so when you read a label with written on it the entrance, you are going to understand, okay, that this door is specified only to enter what, the building, or this door is only specified to what, to get out from the building. So you see, they are using what, only nouns, not some a complete sentence, okay, and there is no verb. And the context here, okay, helps us to understand what this label means. Again, we have some labels on which there are written some prohibitions, something that is not allowed. For example, no smoking, no entry. Okay, so you see here, the main element is what, the noun, smoking, entry. English department, the label that we have on what, on our department is called, it can be Department of English or English department, only what, noun phrases. Okay, there's no verb, it is not a complete sentence, but still we can understand that the meaning of English department or Department of English from the what, from the context. Road signs, okay, some of the road signs, they are not symbols, but they are what, they are words. Which element, which parts of speech they are used in writing these road signs? They are what, using mainly what, nouns. For example, if you are driving your car on a street and you are seeing a sign written on it, there is danger, falling rocks. Okay, you see, the main element is what, only the noun. So what are you going to understand? It is not a complete sentence. There's no verb. So, but the context in which you are will help you understand that you have to what, to watch out, because ahead of you there is what, a danger. Titles, okay, titles of books. Usually titles of books are condensed to not to be are condensed, and they are not written in complete sentences. For example, a grammar of contemporary English. This is a noun phrase. The major element is the noun. There is no verb. But we can understand that this book is about what? Okay, about the grammar of English, or we are going to be introducing this book to the grammar of English. Okay, um, only on a slightly higher communicative level, block language, especially in the newspaper headlines. You see, so on a higher level, okay, this block language is used in what, in writing, in use on what, on newspapers. The headlines, the titles of the articles or essays or news that we are reading on in the newspapers, they are not complete sentences. It is called what, they are having what, the form of block language. How? Because mainly the titles or the headlines of essays, articles, and news in the newspaper, they are written by only using the important element that will tell us, okay, about the main idea of the news that we are going to read. So, which element they are using to make or to write the headline? It is what, the noun, a noun phrase, a single noun, or a nominal clause. Okay, for example, oil prices now higher than ever. This is a headline of a news that is written in a newspaper. Because of they want or they need to be brief, the headlines especially to be brief in order not to take so much space. Okay, so they have, as you see, they have used the headline in the form of a clause, okay, a sentence, a simple sentence in English, but it is not a complete sentence. Okay, there are some elements, which is the verb, it is missing here. But we can understand what kind of verb that should be used in this headline in order to make it a complete sentence. From what? From the context. So oil prices, if we try to examine or to analyze the pattern of this headline, we are going to see that the oil prices is the subject. Okay, now is the adverb, and higher than ever is what is the subject complement. So you see there is no verb, but we can understand what is the verb that should be used here. It is are. Why are? First, we have our subject is what is plural. Okay. Second, the the sentence is having the adverb now, and now is talking about the present. Okay, so here we can understand, and then we have a subject complement. Okay, and if you go back to the 7 patterns we have studied, so usually subject complements, okay, are following what? Intensive verbs, verbs to be. Okay, so all the structure of the sentence or the headline, plus the context of the news that we are going to read, is telling us that the verb is what should be, or should be what should be, are. So you see here, here they are using only the important elements that can tell the reader about the main idea of the news that he is going to what to read. And what is this major element? It is only what? It is the noun, whether it is a single noun or a noun phrase or a nominal clause. The verb is not all the times needed, is not all the times necessary, because it can be understood from the context. So these are the 4 minor types of sentences in English that as you have seen, okay, they can be not complete sentences, whether in structure or in meaning, but still they are what use in language, especially in the informal language and spoken language, and they are understood mainly because of the context. The context is helping the listener or the reader to understand them, although they are not complete sentences. Okay, thank you.